The internet is going nuts right now. For once, the disagreement doesn't stem from a fabricated reality show. In real time, it is blowing up. We are talking about King Harris, the wild progeny of the Harris dynasty, who just took familial dysfunction to a terrifying new level. Think about this. The king of trolling himself was the one who initiated a violent, yelling fight between a boy and his mother, Tiny Harris. Social internet is currently seeing viral videos of 50 Cent that show a side of King Harris that has supporters justifiably concerned and critics incensed. This was not your typical teenage altercation or a misunderstanding for the cameras. Witnesses reported that this was pure and untainted and that it seemed to turn physical. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and King seemed completely unaffected by the fact that he was talking to the lady who had nurtured him. But how did we get here? How does a conversation about 50 Cent turn into a full-fledged family dispute? Is this an example of a young man desperately trying to prove his street cred to an idol who doesn't know he exists? Or is there a darker, more profound hostility brewing between T.I. and the Little household? In this video, we are analyzing every single frame of the explosive footage. We'll look at the exact moment King Harris lost his mind. 50 Cent's name and the remarks that led Tiny to her breaking point ignited this massive explosive keg. We're exploring the mental breakdown of a well-known child who feels limited by his parents' legacy and is willing to burn down the entire house to prove he is a man. Put on your seatbelts because the royal family of hip-hop is currently engaged in a full-scale civil war. You wouldn't believe how disorganized the details are. To truly understand how King Harris went nuts, we need to look behind the widely circulated 10-second video and investigate the toxic environment that existed long before the cameras started filming. This explosion was not unanticipated. Scorched slowly. For years, King Harris has struggled with a serious identity dilemma. Being the child of a great Southern rapper like T and a powerhouse like Tiny Harris comes with a gold-plated cage. The world sees King as a privileged youngster with all avenues open, but King sees a shadow from which he will never truly escape. Throughout his teens, he bravely tried to show that he was dedicated to that way of life. It has turned into his catchphrase and ultimately led to his demise. This specific conflict was supposed to occur during a normal family gathering, when the Harris clan could relax. But when you have a family of influencers and superstars, the live button is always tempting. When King was interacting with both fans and detractors on a social media live stream, 50 Cent was brought up. Hip-hop aficionados know that 50 Cent is the undisputed heavyweight champion of cyberbullying. 50 has previously made fun of King's strong guy persona in comments or jokes. In essence, it suggests that a child who was raised in a mansion shouldn't pretend to be from the trenches. When Tiny Harris noticed her kid getting angry over 50 Cent's comments and mocking, she stepped in as any mother would. She wanted to ease the strain. Tell her son that a conflict-loving father like 50 Cent doesn't need him to prove anything. But King didn't think his mother was protecting him. She was treating him in a patronizing manner. He saw her intervention as a public admission that he couldn't handle his own problems. The moment Tiny touched his shoulder or tried to distract him from the challenging topic, they flicked the switch. The ensuing verbal abuse was shocking. King began to shout as loudly as he could. Anger and what sounded like genuine desperation trembled in his voice. He wasn't just arguing with his mom. He was opposing her power in its entirety. He began shouting that he was an adult, which is a common statement made by 19-year-olds when they feel most like children. He accused Tiny of never truly supporting his career and claimed that Chi and T were more concerned with their brand and legacy than with his own achievements. As the argument intensified, the language became increasingly derogatory. This is when the lost his mind component really shines. Even when they are angry, most people have a mental filter while speaking to their parents, particularly their mothers. King Harris seemed to have removed that filter entirely. He was pacing the room, making aggressive gestures, and his eyes were large and insane. He mentioned 50 Cent again, almost using the rapper's criticism against his own mother. He conjectured that 50 Cent may have been right when he claimed the family was fake or phony. Hearing a son repeat a rival's insults directed at his own family was like a knife to Tiny's heart. Her look shifted from one of maternal concern to one of pure, unadulterated agony. A deeper and more personal hostility replaced the 50 Cent drama. King started bringing up old grievances. He felt silenced for the duration of their reality TV program. He felt more like a prop than an actual person at some points in the T and Tiny story. With a trembling voice, Tiny pleaded with him to be calm and respectful of the house. But every word she said seemed to fan the flames. King began mocking her voice, mocking the woman who had spent millions to ensure that he would never experience the hardships he makes a great effort to mimic in his songs. The room filled up as more family members and security noticed this was more than simply a loud conversation. A problem had arisen. King's body language became increasingly erratic. He wasn't just protecting himself. He was encroaching on Tiny's personal space. At this stage, it became difficult to distinguish between a rude child and a physical threat. He was tossing his arms, knocking things off the table, and keeping other people from talking. Every time Tiny tried to speak, he would yell over her, his cheeks turning pink. The irony of the situation was clear. This young man claimed to be a gangster and a boss. But he was acting out in a lavish setting against those who provided it. One of the many comments made by the live broadcast viewers was, "Stop respecting your mother." It's embarrassing that King was too far gone to care about the internet audience. He was struggling with his thoughts. He thought that by caving in now, he would show 50 Cent and all the other detractors that he was indeed a spoilt kid who did what his mother told him. Instead of diffusing the situation, he doubled down. He began to challenge everyone present to stop him. He was looking for a fight, a physical manifestation of the anger he had been holding inside for years. He started to question Tiny's loyalty and questioned why she cared more about his family's reputation than his feelings as a man. There was a tangible sense of impending conflict. The attention was no longer solely on 50 Cent. It had to do with King Harris's attempt to kill his younger self in the most disastrous way possible. After this initial hour of chaos, the verbal bridge was destroyed. Tiny was plainly shaking, but she refused to back down. Now their physical distance from one another was just a few inches. King loomed over her, his breathing labored and his fists clenched. It was captured on camera when the verbal altercation came to an end and the physical strain started. The story now shifts from a family dispute to a national scandal. Respect had vanished. There was a break in the lines. Furthermore, the king was about to take a decision that would be impossible to reverse. The air in the room had grown cold. Despite the angry shouting, you could see that the boy she raised saw her as an enemy rather than a mother. King Harris started his tirade because of the oppressive pressure of his parents' expectations and 50 Cent's seeming disdain. Physical gestures replaced the verbal abuse. King began to use his chest to approach his mother. A move that's more frequently reserved for a street rival than the woman who saved your life. He was pacing like a caged animal. His movements were jerky and unpredictable. He knocked over chairs while claiming to be the head of the family. To her credit, Tiny tried to maintain the initial composure that has made her famous. She kept telling him, "You're embarrassing yourself, King," but that seemed to simply make him more irate. He began to scream that he had made a false claim, considering the millions of dollars his parents had put in his aspirations through promotion and production. When Tiny tried to soothe him by holding his arm or moving him away from the camera, he didn't only jerk away for the violent shock. He didn't just retreat. He pushed her hand back with a power that startled everyone in the room. This physical moment is being discussed by all. It wasn't a punch, but it was a breach of the most sacred barrier in any household. He was radiating waves of contempt. He began to tower over her, spitting and cursing directly 22 into her face as he demanded respect that he had not earned. It was an odd and tragic sight. A young man dressed in expensive clothes paid for by his parents poses as an oppressed underdog fighting for his life while standing in a house bought by his father's rap career. The thousands of people watching the live feed saw the irony, but he didn't. In the comment section, which was a war zone in and of itself, people were pleading for T to step in and deal with his child before things got worse. Then, in what looked like a scenario from a movie, the King of the South himself emerged in the image. T has never been a man to fool with when it comes to his morals and how the world views his family. As soon as he walked into the room, the dynamic shifted. But surprisingly, King would not concede. The most damaging blow, however, came from the same man who acted as the hidden spark for the explosion. 50 Cent. 50 Cent is more than just a musician. He is an expert in psychological warfare. 50 Cent didn't respond angrily or with a typical diss song, even though he was already in his war room while T and Tiny were likely going through a private family crisis, trying to figure out how to deal with a son who had crossed the ultimate line both verbally and physically. Instead, he did what he does best: he turned the tragedy into a comedy. According to 50 Cent's story, King Harris was precisely what he had promised to spoil, and he began posting recordings of the fight along with mocking commentary, telling the world, "I told you so." By making fun of the situation, 50 Cent effectively took away King's street. The Cred 250 King was a cocky young man whose tough guy persona was just a mask for underlying insecurities. The Harris family struggled to come to terms with the fact that he was content, and the fallout inside the estate was reportedly disastrous. The hurt caused by a child's disrespect is a unique kind of agony for a mother, but having your son put his chest up to you in front of thousands of strangers and having that disrespect broadcast to the world is a humiliation that leaves lasting wounds, according to Tiny Harris, a woman who has spent decades navigating the dangerous seas of reality TV and the music industry. After this incident, the world saw a young man who had lost both his respect for the woman who gave him life and his grasp on reality. For years, Tiny had defended King's illogical outbursts, often telling the media that he was just passionate or misunderstood. T, the King of the South, was in a difficult position. He has always enjoyed being a man of words and ideals, a cultural philosopher, but how can you give a lecture about leadership and paternity when your own son is trying to wrestle you live on Instagram? I tried to control the damage by releasing declarations and even songs about family concerns, but the public didn't buy it. The Harris brand, which was founded on Black excellence and the family business, had a structural fissure. The irony of that was evident. T had spent his lifetime escaping the perils of the streets to provide a secure and comfortable life for his children. His son, however, attempted to emulate a criminal lifestyle by using the same fortune. King Harris chose total destruction than retreating and considering domestic abuse. In the days following the altercation, he became more erratic in his behavior. When he began criticizing 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, even his most devoted fans were forced to abandon him. In the hip-hop scene, mothers, especially those who have passed away, are taboo. By breaking this unwritten law, King did not show his toughness. He showed how desperate he was. He was searching for his identity among the wreckage of his reputation. He wanted to be the antagonist because he thought that notoriety and notoriety were interchangeable. But he quickly learned that clowns are rarely appreciated, despite the fact that the internet loves spectacles. The consequences for one's career came swiftly. Prominent companies and industry insiders began to distance themselves from the King Harris branding. Promoters who had formerly thought of him as a legacy act now saw him as a burden. A 19-year-old who could lose it at any moment is not someone anyone wants to be around. During that terrible live stream, he worked hard to promote his song, but the turmoil overwhelmed his efforts. There was no discussion of his flow and rhythms. When he turned to look at his mother, they were talking about the angry look in his eyes. He had essentially banned himself from the highest echelons of the industry before his career had truly started. The psychological repercussions on the family took center stage in the ensuing weeks. There were reports of emergency interventions, and T.I. purportedly threatened to sever King's financial ties. This was the ultimate test for the family business. Could they survive a betrayal from within? The family's public image shifted from one of glitz and success to one of recovery and crisis management. Every post Tiny wrote was scrutinized for signs of sorrow. In every post he made, T searched for subliminal. He didn't want the struggles that came with his father's respect in the streets of Atlanta. In an effort to become OG faster, he attacked his parents and poked the bear that is 50 Cent. But 50 Cent's disregard for the law is something that the internet never forgets. King thought he was winning the struggle for his freedom, but in reality, he was losing his future. Losing his chances. In the end, there is more to the story of King Harris losing his mind than just a fight over 50 Cent. It acts as a cautionary tale regarding social media's detrimental interactions. Unchecked ego and a strong desire for acceptance. Harris entered that night in an attempt to become king, but he ultimately became a lost prince. He chose to kick the world away while it was there in front of him for a little period of viral fame. Even if 50 Cent stops laughing and the memes stop being popular, the image of a youngster disrespecting his mother will always exist in the digital archives. The Harris family will probably be able to move forward. Blood is thicker than a viral clip, but nothing will ever be the same again. The innocence of their family dynamic has been lost. King Harris showed that he could be motivated to the point where family didn't matter. As everyone watches him every step of the way, the question of whether he can ever fully understand himself without destroying everyone around him remains. We'll see in time. The monarch has temporarily lost his crown, but the hustle has never been harder. The King Harris and 50 Cent issue is more than just a family drama, it's a wake-up call for the entire company. But I want to hear from you. Is King Harris truly a product of his environment? Or did he cross a line that you can never go back? What are your thoughts on 50 Cent's participation in this?